Alexander Heffner, your host on The Open Mind. Our guest today is award-winning soul musician, singer, songwriter Aloe Blacc, a vocalist the London Evening Standard headlined, a record exec's nightmare, an intellectual with old-fashioned values who'd rather spend his dollars on philanthropy than fast cars and fancy clothes. The son of Panamanian immigrant parents, Aloe Blacc possesses infectious creativity and embodies that all-too-rare combination of compassion and stardom. Not since Marvin Gaye's resonant "Make Peace Not War" brand of soul, or Michael Jackson's "We Are the World" ensemble, has an artistic phenom emerged with the potential to galvanize the globe into a deeper musical consciousness. The man, from his newest album, Lift Your Spirit, is disseminated far and wide, as were tracks from his breakthrough Good Things. I want to welcome Aloe Blacc today and explore his quite mesmerizing music, philanthropy, and vision. And first, I'll ask him to expound on his own vision for soulful justice in the modern age. And Aloe Blacc, it's a delight to have you here. How do you transcend the individual lyric, song, or album to create something more profound?
Wow, I think the most important thing is sincerity. It all comes down to what you truly believe in and being able to stand for that in the art that you create. I'm lucky enough to have had a long road to get to, becoming a household name. It wasn't overnight, and that time offered me peace of mind. I got to figure out who I am as a man and what I stand for, and I can put that into the music that I create.
And social justice is a part of that mission. Expound on that.
Well, I've had a tremendous opportunity to share my thoughts and ideas with the world. And I can basically say anything that I want at this point, and millions of people will hear. So I look to my heroes and my leaders in music, the people that have inspired me to do what I do, like Bob Marley or a Michael Jackson or a Joni Mitchell. And the things that they were able to do, I'd like to be able to do, which is use my voice for positive social change. And the music that I write and the songs that I give to the world can entertain people, but they can also educate them. With a song like "One Love" by Bob Marley, I think an artist is doing much more good than harm.
Well, that really seems to be the essence, more than symbolism. And how do you capture that?
Wow. It starts with a simple idea. I wrote a song recently called "Love is the Answer." And it's an idea I had, and it's not a brand new idea. It's a very well-known saying. And there are many other songs with the same title. But I thought that it was the strongest message that I could give to the world at this time, given the contemporary climate in music, and with the platform that I have, the access that I have to radio, television, to print media, to the ears who are listening for what I'm going to release next. I thought it's important for me to say this now and to do it in a way that's entertaining and attractive, so that once the music, the beat, the instrumentation draws the listener in, the message will sink in.
And those contemporary social problems that you hint at in wanting to provide a solution, and being very cognizant of some of these economic difficulties plaguing our country, is income inequality. When you say love is the answer, is that one of the issues you're really trying to highlight?
It's only one of the issues, and it's a very, very important issue. When Martin Luther King was working really hard to promote social justice, to promote racial equality. He found it necessary to shift from a black and white issue to an issue of economic disparity. And a large part of his message was to create justice and rights for poor people. And this is the message that I found also in Nelson Mandela's mission. And before he passed, one of his largest goals was to create equality and resources for the poor, the world's poor. So, as I say, looking at what my heroes have instructed, I feel like the mission is to create a better way for the world's poor. And if I can start here at home in the US, then that's what my mission will be.
But there are global implications of your words. How have you found the reactions to vary by region, both within the country and then also internationally?
Well, I think because of what I do, I've got to always be entertaining. I've always got to make music that is going to attract the ears and attract listeners far and wide of varying demographics, of different age groups, because at the end of the day, if the music is not attractive, if it doesn't sound like something you want to listen to, the message is lost. So that's how I do it. I always have to be sure that my melodies and my instrumentation and the groove and the beat are drawing people in. And that, for me, is the fun part. That definitely is the fun part. All of it's fun, but the crafting the songs is a special treat.
Talk about that treat.
Well, it starts out quite often on the road. I'll be in a vehicle, maybe a tour bus crossing the country, or an airplane crossing continents. And for some reason, there's this moment of captivity that has my mind racing, and ideas are flooding through, and I'm doing the best I can to catch every idea and document it. And I usually use my phone, or I used to pull out a pen and write on the back of the magazines in the back of airplanes, or even the bags that they put back there for when people get sick. And I'd be carrying these bags all over the world with lyrics on them. But this moment of captivity really is an opportunity for me to just sit and be quiet and allow the stillness around me to create basically a party inside. And so many song ideas have come in this way. And I take these ideas to either musicians of mine that have beautiful ideas, melodic ideas, when sometimes they come with melodic ideas already. And so I use my cell phone sometimes to record a message. And before the smartphones came out, I would call my answering machine and leave a melody or an entire song, so that when I got home, I knew what I needed to record.
You think your fans understand the depth of that process?
I don't know. I don't know if they understand the depth of the process. I just hope that they enjoy the final product. And for me, a song is never done. You kind of start it, you meet a deadline and you have to release it. But then when you get on stage, it changes and it continues to grow every time. I enjoy working with different musicians and different bands. And every different group of musicians has a different interpretation, and I'm not very strict on playing it the way it is on the album. I sort of like to hear it in a different way every time.
It's one thing to be cliche, which you are not. For me, the parallel was Marvin Gaye. Love is the answer, I need $1, resonate in the same way that Marvin Gaye in his music commented on the environmental challenges facing the country, certainly the global implications of war and peace.
Absolutely.
Do you find inspiration in Marvin?
Absolutely, I do. His album, What's Going On, is for me, an iconic piece of work that has instructed me on how to use music for positive social change, or at least for sending the message and delivering the words that people want to hear. You know, he had to struggle and fight to get that album out. The record label, Motown at the time, didn't feel as though their audience wanted to hear about social ills, political ills, economic problems, ecological problems. But he felt really strongly about the art that he created. Beyond the art, he felt strongly that it was, he was putting into words what everybody else felt and wanted to say, but needed an outlet. And people were saying what he was saying. There were protests, there were marches, there were sit-ins. However, there's something different about having these mantras done in a way that soothes the soul. And I take so much inspiration from that particular album, What's Going On, and from Marvin Gaye's ability to stand up for the people and against industry in order to get his message out.
Do you think from your experience and those of your contemporaries, there still is a challenge when it comes to articulating the message? Or are the walls kind of colliding around us and free expression is exactly that?
I feel like there is free expression. There always will be free expression. Artists can do whatever they want. It's the matter of getting it to the masses. How can you make it through the gatekeepers to get the messages out amongst a climate that is, I think, regressive in some ways, an artistic climate. It's a situation where there's a lot of business before art, and the corporatization of art, and the capitalistic view of how to sell music versus the social and artistic view of how to make it as an important, it's actually an important resource. It's a human resource. I don't know one culture or civilization that has endured without music. And those that have, and we've seen them in the tyrannical and communistic societies where music is banned, you see what the effect is on people, or at least you know what is not happening, and you can kind of extrapolate from other things in their society that they're not able to do, what the lack of music is causing.
So music can be a great unifier in the best and worst sense, as you're describing. Can it be the great equalizer? I want our viewers to hear what you said recently. Aloe Blacc, I'm passionate about creating a level playing field, adequate healthcare, shelter, food and nutrition, adequate education. And you mentioned specifically your interest in these food deserts. Continuing, within a mile radius, you don't find a quality food store or a quality restaurant where you can buy fruit or vegetables. There's a fast food joint and a quick stop and a liquor mart, and everything is full of fat, processed foods, and sugar. So how can you make music into your next album, Beyond Lift Your Spirit, a great equalizing force?
So for me, music is just one part of it. The music, of course, is my way to send a message. But it's also a way for me to build and develop my friendship with an audience that's global and, of course, domestic. And through this friendship, I hope that people will follow the interviews that I do and follow the other ways that I deliver messages. And perhaps...
Philanthropy.
Perhaps it's through philanthropy, but also maybe it's the overall messages that I tend to put into the music or tend to deliver in my interviews. And so, yeah, I believe that, there's no way to eliminate the development and growth that we've already seen in this modern democratic and capitalistic method by which we live. But if there's a way to infuse compassion into capitalism and get people to compete on the giving space rather than the taking space, then perhaps we can have a better tomorrow. And I'm all for everyone achieving their goals to try to make as much money as they want, if that's their goal. But at the same time, I want for everyone to recognize that everybody deserves at least the same level playing ground. And that's not where we are right now. We're at a very disproportionate playing ground where folks start with nothing. And I don't think people should start with nothing. I think everybody should start with at least the bare essentials.
Well, let me ask you this question then. Is compassionate capitalism possible?
I've seen compassionate capitalism work in really good ways. I appreciate that there are people like the Zuckerbergs and the Gates and the Buffetts of the world who pledge to give away a portion of their wealth. Mm-hmm. And to see the kind of work that the Gates Foundation does, I'm in awe of the impact that they can have. And I believe that if every corporation recognized that the bottom line is only one piece of the puzzle, another piece of the puzzle is contributing to humanity in a positive way, and contributing to your consumers in a way that builds your legacy beyond your bottom line. I think if corporations and the executives can recognize this, then we can institute a lot of programs that will give the economically depressed communities and countries a better chance.
What do you think would create the impulse for more executives, less high-profile ones, mm-hmm. but the folks you allude to make that impact? Because there's a debate in this country about mm-hmm. whether the government needs to be more forceful or adamant or instructive in imposing that will.
I was going to suggest government, but I know government is not the only way. What has to happen is there needs to be a cultural shift. And that cultural shift, I believe, starts with creating a positive climate around the giving space. I've had the opportunity to go to a lot of charity banquets and see the massive amounts of money that gracious donors are giving to causes around the world. But a lot of this information, a lot of what this giving stays hidden. It stays unheralded because it just remains in these four walls in this banquet hall that night. The money goes to do some really good social good. But I sort of believe that if it wasn't so taboo to toot your own horn about what you've given, then perhaps we can create a culture around it where people are happy to say what they've given and to encourage others to do the same. And perhaps if there is no climate like that, I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about making public the kind of giving that my colleagues are doing, because they don't feel it's right to.
They're afraid of the ethical dilemma here?
No, it's not an ethical dilemma. They know that they're doing good. They're afraid of
taking credit for it?
Taking credit and being seen.
So that's the ethical issue.
Yes, it's like being seen as you're only doing it for the promotion, and I really don't think that there's an issue promoting that you've done something good, and I hope that my audience or their audience doesn't feel as though that they're insincere, because I feel like somebody has to be a role model and show how it is good and how so much good can come from it.
It doesn't seem to me vanity.
It doesn't seem to me vanity either, but I've had these conversations with a lot of different folks, and you know, the opinions
You do a
are,
WikiLeaks style exposing of
I
all their
honestly,
financial
I honestly
contributions for humanity.
am working on that right now.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, what in your own biography has given you this natural proclivity toward philanthropy, toward giving, and toward standing up and saying, yes, I've given this money and I mean it?
I think it's, for me, a strong sense of justice, social justice. My parents are from Panama. In Central America and South America, there was no civil rights movement. There was a beautiful movement here in the U.S. to create equality for people of color and for people who don't have the economic means to advance in society. But it wasn't that way in Panama. And my parents moved to the United States in the mid to late 70s in order to benefit from the rights that were given to people of color, the opportunities that were given to people of color, and from that, I was able to have, you know, top-notch education and access to, you know, the best resources to make a living for myself. And so an understanding of the struggle that my parents went through, the opportunities afforded me to do what I do today, and the continued lack of resources or the disparity between opportunity for people of color or poor people in other parts of the world. That's what drives me. And I recognized it early because I had this experience as a first-generation American. I recognized it early learning about, you know, how government works and how power works. And I've always been interested in the dynamics of power and government and society, and the power of language. I was taken aback by learning about the propaganda of Nazi Germany and how easily language was used to, language along with guns, but language along with the sense of nationalism to create hysteria. And I was taken aback by the power of Mahatma Gandhi to use language along with compassion and love to create a movement that ultimately made dramatic changes for himself and his people.
I think that first generation element is really important. And we're having this very heated and contentious immigration debate in this country. Mm-hmm. What's going to be your contribution, Aloe Blacc, to this conversation?
My contribution really is, as I've been saying, is compassion. You know, if we were to do a full-scale genealogy of just the concept of immigration in the United States, we would see many abuses of power, we would see many atrocities, and we would see an absolute dire need for compassion and understanding of the human condition, to make available opportunity for people who are looking to have a better life, to raise their kids, and to contribute. And I see from most of the immigrants that I know, hardworking people who are willing to give their all to have a better education for their kids and better opportunities for their family. And I hope that we can all come to a consensus on making life better for people rather than focusing on in some ways, the emotional issues around immigration.
We're running out of time, but it seems to me, documented or undocumented, immigrants are going to enrich the spirit and body of this country.
The history of immigration is that immigration has enriched this country. And labor is one of the most important points in immigration. People are looking for work. And I know I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for forced labor. So we have to be conscious and cognizant of the history of labor and America. And we have to do what I believe is right in making available to people who are looking for work and giving them the opportunity to have that work.
Aloe Blacc, you are as elegant and eloquent on the radio as you are in person here today. And I really appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness in response to these questions.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Aloe Blacc. And thanks to you in the audience. I hope you join us again next time for a thoughtful excursion into the world of ideas. Until then, keep an open mind. Please visit the Open Mind website at 13.org/openmind to view this program online or to access over 1,500 other Open Mind interviews. And check us out on Twitter and Facebook at Open Mind TV for updates on future programming.